Hey, good morning, everybody. Before I get my mask on, I started without, sorry. The amber, this is vintage amber, it's already been done. Next step is the red. I'm gonna get at it. And I'm gonna pause between colors so that I can try to get this all in one video. All right, so we've got color. Hopefully this will come through. Of course, the compressor's got to kick on. And I'm thinking that this is going to look a lot better, maybe even blotchy out in the sunlight. So I'm just going to let this sit and dry. It is what it is. To change it, I'd have to sand it back, get rid of it all, start over. And we're going to see how it looks once I can get it out in the sunlight. Have a good one. Bye. Hello, friends. Checking in with you. We've started putting clear on the guitar. I had to do some touch-ups and some touch-up scraping, but this is the third coat of clear of at least 15 coats. So far, so good. Looking very nice. It's laying down nice and flat. So what I have in the gun and in this jar is guitar lacquer specifically for guitars, and it's a 3-to-1 mix with retarder, so it's going to slow down the drying process of the lacquer, allowing it to lay down a little more flat. I'm just taking my blower in. There. Close that up. So it's going to allow the lacquer to dry a little slower, which is going to encourage it to lay down flat instead of being more like little particle dots on the guitar. It's going to hopefully blend in. And based on my research, it's calling for an hour between coats, 3 coats a day. So for 15 coats, it's going to take 5 days to get this done. And then I have to let it cure for 2 weeks at least before I wet sand and polish. So it'll be a bit of a process. Hey, good morning, everybody. Just checking in. I had to do brake work on my truck yesterday, so I had to take yesterday off, so I didn't get any coats on this yesterday, but I just put the 6th coat on and only 9 more coats to go. I'll get 3 coats done today, and it's looking pretty good if I say so. I'll check in with you later. Have a good one. Bye. Hey, everybody. I just wanted to show what I go through before each coat. This is the touch-up gun that I'm using. It's a Harbor Freight. Came in a kit of 2, a full-size HVLP gun and this touch-up gun. So what I've got, I got my air, hang on, set to about 15. So you see, when under normal pressure, it's about 40. But when that's about 20. So, and I've got the fan as wide as it'll go. And I don't want to put out too much liquid because I don't want to have a run. But at the same time, I don't want to spend a lot of time working it. Oh, I gotta flip this around. Hang on. There we go. So I'm gonna videotape doing a coat. And if you wonder how to get your gloves so you can put them back on, turn them inside out, see how the fingers aren't up, blow into them. So you can get the glove back on, reuse it. There we have it. Coat number 7. All right, gang, 15 coats on her. We're all done with the lacquer. It's wet, so I don't want to touch it. But that's 15 coats of clear. Took me 6 days, 3 coats a day. And now we get to wait for it to cure, which will be the better part of 2 weeks before I can buff and polish. But a little bit of orange peel, but that's normal with that many coats. And doing nothing in between other than wiping it down with a tack cloth. Oh, I'm so excited. I wanted to talk about my finish on the other guitar, the 335. So I've been using the videos from Driftwood Guitars as my guide. Matt and Chris on there, they do some really fantastic work. And they had a video called Prep a Guitar for Finish, and they had another one that calls Shooting a Sunburst, which is, I used both of those. Kind of mishmashed the information together and ended up with what I got. I was a little heavy-handed on my color. My guitar is darker than theirs turned out, even though I use the same exact ingredients. So, what I didn't do when I was watching this video was I heard him say sealer. And I thought, one sealer is every sealer. And that is not the case. I used a nitrocellulose sealer, and he uses a vinyl sealer. The difference being, in case you don't know, is if you spray a nitrocellulose sealer on a piece of wood, and then you go over the top of that with a lacquer, which is also nitrocellulose, the nitrocellulose will burn through that layer of sealer, exposing the layer underneath, which is what I did. I was wondering why, if I touched the guitar by accident, I was blemishing the finish, the color layer underneath, and I had to be extra super careful so as not to do that. And then it dawned on me after watching another round of these videos that he's using a vinyl sealer between the color and the lacquer. So the color goes on with a cellulose inner coat clear, and then he's using a vinyl clear as a spacer. And then once he's done with the vinyl sealer, he goes over it with the nitrocellulose. The nitrocellulose won't burn through the vinyl sealer. Vinyl sealer protects the color layer underneath. Everything turns out better. And I thought, oh, okay. So I ordered a quart of vinyl sealer, which should be here today at some point, for this guitar, the Les Paul, and whatever other guitars I use it for. So once this has a color coat on it that we're happy with, I'm going to do a probably 3 layers of vinyl sealer before I do 15 more coats of lacquer, which means I need to order more lacquer for this, because I've only got about probably less than a pint of instrument lacquer, because of the other 15 coats on the 335. It uses quite a bit. And I mixed it 3-to-1, which used less lacquer than I would have had I mixed it if I had used it straight out of the can. I think it was a little thick to use it straight out of the can, though it needed to be thinned. So I'm glad I thinned it, and I'm going to stick with that, obviously, and I'll use that same formula. So anyway, that's where I'm at as far as, lessons learned. What's going on, everybody? I have started to wet sand the guitar and buff. This is to 5,000 grit. I wasn't sure how it was going to go. Using the sander that I had, I went to the 4-inch pad on it. Splatters water everywhere, obviously, and I've still got some little swirls. I'm hoping that's going to come out with the buffing. It's what it's supposed to do. But I'm seeing some really good reflections. But when I'm right on top of it, I don't see the reflection of the light, because the light's not a bulb anyway, specifically. So I'm just going to start into buffing and see what I get. That is after the fine cut cleaner, the more coarse of the polishes that I have. I can see a few scratches, a couple right there. But it's getting there. I'm going to move to the next. Oh, there's a big scratch right there. I have to decide what I'm going to be happy with, because I don't want to screw it up. So there's got to be that happy medium. I mean, I'm looking at reflections. We'll keep going. Okay, there's what's called the swirl remover 2.0. And it did help a lot, but it's not perfect. Some scratches there, but wow, you know, I decided I'd start with the back just so I can figure stuff out, and I'm thinking for the front I'm gonna hand sand. I started hand sanding the neck with 1000. You can see where there's silvery shiny low spots. I'm not going to worry about those. I didn't up here, and they're gone. So and I may come back over this hand sanding if the front works out. But you know what? I am not disappointed with that at all. And I'll check in with you guys later on. Bye. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, Sunday afternoon. I couldn't sleep last night because the scratches were bothering me and swirls and driving me out of my mind. So once I got home today, I decided I was going to hand sand the back. So even though I had it polished, nope, not good enough. So I hand sanded it back, and I got rid of all the swirls. I started at 1200 grit, and I worked my way up to 5000 wet sanding. I got rid of all the swirls. Yes, there are still some scratches, but I just finished polishing, and I tell you what, even though I had it polished to, this is a swirl remover by Meguiar's, I had it, that's the final polish. I still had some scratches I didn't like, so I wasn't sure if Plastex would work. I have some, and it says scratches, but I didn't know if it would work on this application. But you know what? It did. This was worse than what you see now, and I think the Plastex is what did it. And I'm using that buffer, SPTA, PTSD, LMNOP company, whatever. And my other one I used for the Plastex was my Rockwell. Now this one is random orbit and you know, spins and does this. This one is just oscillates and it goes back and forth. And I sanded with the grain, or polished with the grain on that application, and I think that's took care of quite a bit of this. But I'm looking at the reflections I'm getting, and the light is reflecting much better. Even though the light has a lens over it, I still see the lens very well. Like if I was gonna, you know, have, like I can almost read that in the reflection. Yeah, there we go. That's not bad. So I'm going to leave that alone for now. Move on to the front, which I started sanding by hand last night to see if it was going to be better than power sanding. And this was where I discovered it was. So I stopped that, decided I was going to redo the back. So I'm going to move on to the front. I'm hungry, so I'm going to take a break. And I got the back of the headstock done with 1,000 grit last night. You see the deeper low spots. And I'm not going to bother with that because the back, they all disappeared on the back. So I'm just going to expect that they will do that everywhere else. See what I get. But you know, I like that. Nothing wrong. Thank you guys for following. I'll see you guys soon. Have a good one. Good morning, everybody. We have been trying to figure out how to get this to polish how I want it to polish. And we are almost there. Good thing I got 15 coats of clear on this, or I'd be through to the wood by now. But that is way better than anything I've done so far. And I've just been having to try to figure out the combination. I keep sanding it back. You know, I've got 5,000 grit. I go back to 1,200 if I've got deep scratches. I had some deep scratches here and here. So I sanded that back to 1,200 just now. Brought it up to 5,000 via 1,200, 1,500, 2,000, 3,000, and 5,000. And the sander that I got came with these pads. I was using these foam pads like these right here, and I think those are a little too coarse. I think those were actually leaving scratches instead of taking them out. Because once I switched to these fiber pads, I started getting this. And I'm using, like I said, still, I've just used fine cut cleaner, Meguiar's, and Meguiar's swirl remover. I just now finished polishing the swirl remover off. And, you know, I can still see some imperfections there. But that is way better than it was before. And, you know, as much damage as I had caused it, before I stumbled onto this combination, you know, I had maybe got myself past the point of return. I did the headstock last night. I've got to come back to the back, and I'm going to redo it with the same thing I did for the front just now. And then all I've got left is to redo the back, the neck, and the sides, which I guess is like 3/4 of the project. But I'm happy with that, and I'm done with that. Now I got to figure out how to protect it while I do the rest of it. And we will check in with you guys later. Thank you so much for following this. I know it's been quite a journey. I'm as anxious as anybody else is. I want to start seeing some hardware go on this thing, get it wired, and actually make it make sound. So excited. Thank you guys. Have a good one. Bye. Hey gang, just checking in. I have the rest of the guitar. That's a little wet. I have the rest of the guitar sanded with 1,000 grit. This is by far the hardest step, getting the whole thing level. Because I sand until I have minimal of those shiny low spots. Which takes, just to go around this guitar, and the neck has been, I don't know, 2 hours for me. And I'm doing it by hand because I don't want to sand through. As it was, I did burn through, I think it was, where did I burn through? Right up here somewhere. Right there. That little tiny spot. I'm not going to worry about that. So from that now, the next grits are just going to be basically smoothing out the scratches from the 1,000 grit and moving forward with it. But I worked myself up a lather and a hunger, so I'm going to take a break from this and go have a bite to eat and come back and keep after it. We are in the home stretch for this. I'm so excited. Have a good one. Thanks a lot for following this.